The purpose of a virtual research environment, or VRE, is to help researchers in all disciplines to manage their increasingly complex workloads. It should provide a framework of resources to support the underlying processes of research on both small and large scales. The Jisc Virtual Research Environment programme funded 15 projects across the UK and sought to define and help to develop common frameworks and associated standards, and, by extension, to encourage others to work to develop and populate VREs with applications, services and resources appropriate to researchers' needs. VREs have their roots in virtual learning environments, or VLEs, which have become increasingly common across further and higher education institutions. Most universities and colleges use either commercial VLEs such as Blackboard or open source frameworks such as Sakai to coordinate and assist with administration and teaching and learning. VREs, however, offer an extra dimension of functionality and tools and allow users to really begin to engage with and collaborate in the collection and exchange of their data by giving the end user the capacity for analysis and cross-communication, all within one application. As every research project is unique, so must every VRE be either bespoke or customisable to match those specific research needs. The Jisc projects all focused on what the physical structure of a VRE actually was, and how to address key issues such as authentication, authorization and interoperability.
The most important starting point for all this work is to actually analyse the real research processes that real researchers are going through. And again, where we can add value to that process through the use of technology, we shouldn't get hung up about what kind of technology that is. There are some concomitant issues. One is that as a consequence of the kind of more component-based approach of a VRE, we're likely in some senses to present users with a more confusing user experience. They're likely to find multiple interfaces to tools, which has got a fairly high cognitive overload. But as far as we can reduce that, we should probably act to reduce it. The other concomitant is, of course, that the use of these different tools can be hooked together in a workflow, and that's somewhere where we think the virtual research environment has a lot of work to do, but can bring a real benefit to the research practitioner.
At Daresbury Laboratory, the Growl VRE project addressed the uptake of grid-based computing and distributed data management by focusing on issues which either hindered or facilitated end-user application development. They developed a lightweight, easily installable client grid toolkit to give scientists transparent access to the grid and the powerful resources it offers.
There are a number of scientific challenges today which require large-scale facilities, and what we want to do is make it easier for scientists in universities throughout the country to use the facilities and the computers to enable them to do data analysis and modelling. So we saw an opportunity to get involved in the Jisc VRE programme right from its initial stages, and to develop both portal-based access to data and compute resources, and also a library of programming functions which could be linked into existing desktop applications and provide scientists with a familiar environment but enrich their capabilities.
We had a number of scientists who were used to using what we call cluster computers, distributed computing, small groups of high-performance computers, but not the grid at large. And we needed to know what it was that prevented them, what were the barriers to that. So we identified three potential barriers. One would be the installation of the extra software you would need to install for this. The second one was that they also needed to use certificates for authentication. The third barrier would be that of firewalls.
The Growl toolkit wraps up a lot of the complexity, so a lot of the complexity to do with authentication, so how you tell the remote machine who you are and that you're allowed to do certain things, and the process of copying files over. It's quite a complex kind of multi-stage procedure. So the Growl toolkit provides a very simple interface for us when we're developing our software to work with. So for us it becomes a much more simple job, and we're not as worried about the complexities of the underlying grid technology. Because I say we're scientists, and we're interested in the code. We're not that bothered about how the stuff is got out there. So growl provides a way of insulating us from that.
At the University of Leeds, EVI, the Embedding of VRE in Institutional Environments project team, worked to embed and integrate a virtual research environment within an existing framework. They address the issues and challenges this environment can present to developers and researchers, including multiple methods of authentication and authorization, finding information and sharing information between applications.
EVI wanted to look at issues of authentication, authorization to those various systems, and to work out what the current landscape of research and research tools were at the University of Leeds, and to think of where best we could impact and improve that environment so that researchers could actually have an increasing awareness of and increasingly effective use of those tools.
Well, the first task really was to make a final decision as to which environment we were going to use. We'd been evaluating two up to that point, including Luminous and uPortal. We had more choices than that in the sense that we could either use our own instance of Luminous, or we could try and use the university's portal instance of Luminous, which already had a large user base and also had a number of resources already set up which we'd be able to take advantage of. We were still able to present some of the JSR 168 portlets that couldn't be displayed directly in Luminous by just using an iframe and using Pluto as a back-end for that. So we were to a degree able to have the best of both worlds.
We certainly wanted to embed things as far as possible so that the experience that a researcher would have, if for example a researcher had already been a student at the university, they would still be using the same kind of environment and tools that they'd already experienced. If they were using an environment for other activities, then they would have a common experience when they moved across to doing their research.
In Cambridge, at the Centre for Applied Research in Educational Technologies, CARET, the project team examined how an existing open-source virtual learning environment framework, Sakai, could be customised for different projects within the field of educational research. They also looked at what could be developed to widen the toolset currently available.
Sakai recognises that for a university lecturer, often they're doing a lot of teaching, but quite often someone's main focus is going to be on their research. And in the past, we've been asking people to learn to use two different, or more, 2 or 3, 4 different sets of software in order essentially to get their one job done. So Sakai is saying, okay, well, hang on, can we actually make things simpler by using the same software, dropping in different tools and helping you get all your job done in the same place?
Within Sakai it's very customizable, and because of this modular idea of the tools, you can just drop them in and take them out. And we had this idea of different projects customizing it, how they, no, we don't want the discussion board, we never use it, we're not going to use it, we don't want it. We're using this to archive interviews, so we want 3 or 4 resources to all in the same place. People spend a lot of time emailing documents to each other saying, I've added my paragraph, now you add yours, or you edit mine. And you get these huge documents getting emailed back and forth with track changes. And that's where we thought using a wiki would probably cover that. That's where one of the major pushes was to develop a wiki within Sakai, but nobody was working on that at the time. So that's now become part of the core release. The other thing we found quite quickly was people putting in into resources lots of Word documents, PDFs, this kind of stuff. They're research transcripts basically. And what they wanted to do is then search through the whole lot. There was no sort of search tool for the resources tool. So that's since been developed at Sakai as well, so we've got the search tool now, and that's part of the core release now as well.
All of the 15 Phase 1 projects contributed to the understanding and development of virtual research environments. It's only through further understanding their implementation that their future contribution within the research and e-science communities can be conceived.
I think the future of a VRE is that while it might be embedded in an institutional environment, it shouldn't be physically located anywhere. A researcher should be able to access everything they need to access from wherever they happen to be, so that they're enabled to do their research in the most effective way possible.
You need a VRE that's a Lego set, essentially. But then can the people you work with, you know, those researchers, they're not interested in building the Lego set. They just want the tools that they want, and they want them to work.
I would like to see a very rich, flexible tool set, almost an constantly expanding toolkit that provided a rich user experience for the research practitioner, but integrated well enough to actually really affect the quality of research and supported those core tasks of research well. And I think also that that's possibly not something which in the future we'll limit to e-research. I think it's likely that across the academic enterprise we'll see that kind of focus on both research and on learning.